Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're speaking with Fay Nelson. She's an indigenous Aboriginal woman from North Queensland and a fierce advocate for animal welfare and environmental conservation. She merges her passion and wisdom in her enlightening book, We Need Help, Help Us Please. She is known for her dedication and her advocacy in Aboriginal arts as well, and her journey has led her to lend her voice to the plight of animals, birds, and corals in the reefs. We're delighted to have her join us here today in Spotlight. We thank the folks at Prime 7 Media for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel. Fay, thanks so much for joining us again today.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
The pleasure is all mine. What are you working on these days? What's your passion?
I decided that being the age that I am, it was time that I started to record things that my grandmother taught me. And the pictures that are behind me are pictures of women's spirits that live in our country and look after us. Women's spirits taught Aboriginal women how to live and how to care for themselves and their children and the elders and country, importantly. And so I'm concentrating on that, and I'm doing a few paintings to show that, and I'll probably bring a book out about it.
Yes. Wonderful, wonderful. And of course, you have your book, We Need Help, Help Us Please, which is a strong environmental message. Tell the folks at home what that book is all about.
Okay, I was born in North Queensland, and my homeland is actually Hinchinbrook Island, which is the second largest national park national park in the world. And I was, of course, surrounded by wonderful family, my nana and my dad, my brothers and my sisters. And it was our pleasure to always hunt and gather food, both from the ocean and from the land. But I'm writing We Need Help, Help Us Please on behalf of the animals who I believe are being devastated. The corals who help build and continue to build the reef are being devastated because the water is too warm because of climate change. And I'm worried about some of the animals that are eating plastics that break into little pieces and they swallow them, and the plastics get trapped in their gullet and they die. And it's not fair. Because going back and thinking about what Granny and Dad taught us, about respect for the animals and what have you, on land and sea. And Mr. Crawford, we have many of the animals as our totems. And I noticed that many of the birds and sea animals that are dying would have been the totems of Aboriginal people. And if we lose our totems, then we lose ourselves. And we lose ourselves in a very harsh way, that we are lost souls virtually. So I'm writing that book because I want people to know that they must do something to help the animals, the giant sea turtles, the big bungaroos and the dugongs, and our major totem. One of our major totems is a big eel that lives out in the reef, and we have to ensure that our totem survives. So when you see the islands of plastics that are building up, and when you go down to the beach and you see the plastics that are there on the ground, or on the beach rather, it is devastating to see. And I'd like to just wake people up to the fact that it is our responsibility as people now in this era, in this age, to ensure that the lives of our seas of our land are continually cared for. And it's up to us as people to make sure that we do care for them. Yes.
Absolutely. And part of your message is that it's important to take care of your country by proper disposal of rubbish. It's a huge issue. Tell me
yes.
how viewers can help in practical ways to implement this in their everyday lives.
Well, easy. People can make sure that they don't leave rubbish lying around. If they have a farm, and I had a farm, and we had to ensure that we didn't use poisons on the ground because the poison would simply flow into the rivers anyway. And the plastics, of course, you have the garbage disposal people who, if you live in a city, can help you to get rid of that. And there are municipal tips as well. In my book, I've drawn, tricycles and goodness knows what else, tyres, etc. Even old cars get dumped into rivers and what have you. And people just have to start caring properly for country. If you love this country, if you love your country, then you must love it so that you clean it and you keep it precious for your children, for your grandchildren. And I've written the book to be aimed at children whose parents can read to them, but also the message is there very clearly for the parents to talk to their children that they must take care of country and they must love this country.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your book also emphasizes the interconnectedness of all elements: sun, moon, wind, land, water, fire, flood, sky, and human activities. Yes. Tell us a little bit about these thoughts on the interconnectedness.
The thoughts on the interconnectedness of water, for instance, and the land. We had terrible droughts a couple of years ago, and the droughts came because people cut down the trees, people left the land lay bare, the farmers didn't know how to care for country, and they still don't know how to care for country. They pump the water out of the rivers for the sake of their farm trees, etc. And they have too many people living alongside, say, a river and taking too much water out of that river. That kills the trees, that kills the birds. My homeland on shore was at a place called Black River, and there was a huge smelter refinery put up a few kilometres up north from the river. And I mean only a few kilometres. And all of the underground water was sucked out. And in that river, when I was a little girl, we had beautiful big tea trees. And tea trees, are just such fantastic trees because they help the birds with their flowers and their honey, and they help people like me and Granny with their flowers and making it into a honey drink with water. And it's just cruel to see these big, beautiful trees dying, and for the reason that people want them to, people actually take the water away from them so that they will die. And they don't understand that the trees hold the earth together. And they don't understand that rivers are actually the bloodlines of our country, that we must care for country, that we must be able to drink the waters that are there. But there are so many people who want to buy land, own land, and do what they want to do with that country. But they can do what they want with that country as long as they also take care of the country. And there's no reason why they can't take care of it.
Yeah,
I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Part of your book also emphasizes the Aboriginal people's deep relationship with native animals, flora, fauna, recognized as their totems. Can you share a little insight on these relationships and the ceremonies celebrating them?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. When we are in our mother's womb, I'll give you an example. One of my brothers, mum was sitting by the river fishing, and she had a visitor come to her from behind her, and the visitor was a snake. And the snake came and he sort of crawled across her lap, and she was terrified because it was one of the most venomous snakes we have in Australia. But then she just sat there. She was frozen, of course, terrified. And then my father came back and he saw the snake. And when the snake saw Dad, it just quietly slid away. Well, that happens when your totem comes to visit you. It's not about having a totem that comes after you're born, but they come before you are born in many cases. Many Aboriginal people may have a different way of finding out who their totem is. So the brother that was in Mum's womb, he was a snake person. And so when we'd sit around the campfire at night after we've had dinner, he could call those snakes. Those snakes would come and he could handle them, and they loved him. And any snake, the black and white fellas, the little tree snakes, red-bellied blacks, pretty nasty, but yeah, when they're there, they're okay. And Mr. Crawford, one of the important things that we have totems for is that I have another brother who is of the crocodile totem. And when he was born, the crocodiles came up. They build their nest on land, of course, and they came up, and my brother was one of them, and he had a role to play for us, as a lot of our totems do. So his role was to warn us if the crocodiles wouldn't want us to pass through their waterway. So he would go in first, and if the crocodiles didn't want us there, they'd tap him on the leg and he'd come out and he'd say, no, we got to go further up the river. And that way, none of us ever got taken by a crocodile. So they do have a role to play. And the ceremonies that we had, we could make carvings, we could make feathered objects, we could make paintings that featured the faces of those animals, etc. And we would have ceremonies. And sometimes, you know, you'd have a big ceremony where the neighbouring groups would come. So you may have 100, 200 people come and celebrate the life of a particular totems. Yes.
Amazing, amazing. Fay Nelson is an advocate for animal welfare, environmental conservation, and she has merged her passion and wisdom into an enlightening book. It is called We Need Help, Help Us Please. It's a great book that will open your eyes to situations in this world that can be remedied and can be fixed and can keep this planet a beautiful place. Fay, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. You're welcome, and I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
I've enjoyed it as well. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time, this time until next time on Spotlight.